At first I was just going like a few times a week, and I really kind of stuck with this sort of like you try a climb and then when you get to the top it feels really good, especially if you've been trying it for a while. And so just kind of like not knowing if you're going to be able to do it, but then when you get it done it's really satisfying. In general, just during practice and at the gym, a lot of times I'll do what's called like on-sighting, which just means you turn around, take a look at a climb, and try to do it first try without having seen anyone else do it.
Do you have any like climbers or just athletes in general you idolize or look up to?
Yeah, so definitely in terms of climbers, I would say Margot Hayes. You probably haven't heard of her unless you're a climber, but she's super cool. I've met her a couple times. She's really, really nice, and she was the first woman to do 515A.
Hey guys, welcome to the Fergie Time podcast. Today we have on Team USA climber and recent medalist at the USA Rock Climbing Youth Nationals, Cloe Coscoy, to talk about her background on recent success at Youth Nationals and future goals. So when did you first begin rock climbing, and who introduced you to the sport?
I started rock climbing about 5 years ago, and I mostly just started going to the climbing gym near my house just because it was a cool thing to do with like my parents and stuff, and then it just kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm. So do your parents climb or anything like that?
Yeah, so my parents used to climb before I was born, but they kind of stopped when they had me and my brother. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was just like this climbing gym opened up near our house, so we started going over there.
Okay. What appealed to you about climbing initially? Because I know you did other sports like cross country before. Like, why did you really like climbing?
Yeah, so at first I was just going like a few times a week, and I really kind of stuck with this sort of like you try a climb and then when you get to the top it feels really good, especially if you've been trying it for a while. And so just kind of like not knowing if you're going to be able to do it, but then when you get it done it's really satisfying. So
I can relate to that. I mean, I've climbed a little bit, but like when you're able to like work your way up and see the progress, like it's one of those things where you can see the progress so clearly just because you see you're doing harder and harder climbs.
Yeah, for sure.
At what is there a specific moment when you realized, hey, like I'm pretty good at this, like I could go somewhere with this, or like?
Yeah, so definitely the past 3 years or so I've been competing a lot more, and then maybe 2 years ago I went to Youth Nationals for the first time, and I kind of just went in with like very little expectations, and it was out of 50 people who all were in like the top 5 of their state, kind of, or top 5 of their division, which can be a combination of states. So just going in, I didn't really have any expectations, and then I ended up qualifying for finals in 4th place, and I didn't do so well in finals, but it was just like kind of a good moment for me to realize, hey, I could actually maybe do really well. So that kind of upped my goals for the next year and the next competition season.
That's cool. Do you remember your first competition and like what that was like and your experience with that?
Yeah, so my very first few competitions were just part of this small like North California league, and it's basically just to get sort of beginners into like youth climbers into competitions. And it was definitely pretty nerve-wracking, and I remember like yelling at my dad a lot kind of the whole time because he would try to give me suggestions, but I was super stressed out about it, like which climbs to try. But definitely like gained confidence in the competitions after that, and don't yell at people anymore when I'm competing.
So climbing for 5 years, that's not actually that long, is it?
No, not really.
So you just kind of picked it up as you went along. Did you join the team like right away, or did you just start climbing?
Yeah, so I joined the team right away, but it wasn't super serious for a while. It was just kind of like a lot of kids just hanging out and climbing together. But then like definitely the last 3 years, I started training like a lot more seriously. So that was like a pretty big jump in terms of what we were doing.
Yeah, a lot of people were wanting me to ask about kind of what your workout routine is like how many days a week are you in the gym, and then like what's the ratio between like actually climbing to like lifting, cardio, core, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of depends throughout the season. Like, I can't be doing the most training all the time because like my body just can't really handle it. But where I was doing the most training was probably from December, January, kind of into February before the national championships, which was end of February. So that was really intense for me. It was definitely 6 days a week, for sure. And then sometimes 7th day, be doing a little bit of cardio or something. But the 6 days, it would be sometimes 4.5 hours in the gym. And then twice a week before school, I would be going to the pool or trying to do some type of cardio, just like to add on to that. And then in the gym, it really depends on the day. Like Wednesdays, for example, I do no climbing, and then I would just, I do a lot of core and then lift a little bit and do like just some body weight exercises. And then in general, probably about like 2.5 hours are spent like on the climbing wall, maybe 2 hours, and then other time is spent so either lifting or doing what's called hangboarding, which is hanging on edges to strengthen your fingers, and like campus boarding, which is similar as well. It's just pulling through on edges to strengthen your fingers and contact strength as well.
So when you're doing all this sort of exercise, because it sounds like most of the days are like 3-4 hour days almost by the time you do everything. How have you adapted your diet in any way in terms of nutrition, and what kind of stuff are you trying to eat before and after? And
so definitely this past year I've tried to pay a lot more attention to what I eat, just because like I think that if you're eating well, it can help really help add to like your gains and then trying to get better. So I would say I definitely eat breakfast every day, usually something like mostly carbs and some protein, so maybe oats or yogurt or something like that. And then, so I get out of school at 1:30, so I go home, eat lunch, and that's right before I go to the gym, so it'll usually be something not on the heavy side because then I can't climb really well, so maybe just like good balance of carbs and proteins, a little bit of fat too. And then afterwards, I definitely try to get more protein and more carbs as well, and then some fats too. But I've just tried to keep sort of a good ratio going. And then like also I kind of started looking at just kind of how many carbs, fats, proteins. It's about like 50 carb, 25 protein, 25 fat. So on the nutrition standpoint. But
have you noticed anything since you started looking at that stuff more closely? Like, have you noticed a difference in terms of energy or like how you feel?
Yeah, so I think definitely like weeks where I'm able to kind of keep up with that pretty well, I definitely feel really good. And then I haven't been looking into it super closely for long enough to be able to say anything about any major differences, but definitely the past like few months I've been looking more closely into it, just kind of out of curiosity because it's something that interests me. But I would definitely say that I'm going to keep sort of looking into it. And I definitely like to kind of watch what I'm eating and make sure that it's going to help me workouts.
Do you have any like climbers or just athletes in general you idolize or look up to?
Yeah, so definitely in terms of climbers, I would say Margot Hayes. You probably haven't heard of her unless you're a climber, but she's super cool. I've met her a couple times. She's really, really nice, and she was the first woman to do 515A, which is a really, really hard climbing grade, and that was really cool. She put a lot of work into that, and that was a really big moment for climbing for sure, so it was really cool.
So is there any reason, like specific reason why you look up to her? Is it like...
Yeah, so I think her specifically, she's so like nice and has such a good attitude that it really makes like all of her accomplishments, I think, so much more impressive, that even being like, she gained a lot of fame this year through like being the first woman to climb 515A, and she's still just such a positive attitude, so nice. And like at competitions, I've seen her like encourage everybody who is like not nearly as strong a competitor as her, and she's still out there. She's still talking to everybody, and yeah, just her attitude I think is super inspiring to see.
So just
that.
being more than just like a climber, being someone who's active in the community and someone who brings a good presence.
Yeah, she's more than just a strong climber. She's a really cool person too. So.
Okay. So going on to Youth Nationals, you finished second there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that whole experience like? What were your expectations going in, and then coming out of it, what kind of emotions or what were you feeling coming out of that?
Yeah, so for me this year, going into it, my big goal was definitely to be top 3, which is to be the U.S. national team. That was the top 3 people at nationals. There's no other way to qualify for the national team, so it was a lot of pressure kind of going into that on myself, that I was just like knowing that was completely reasonable, but also there's not a lot of room for error there when they're only taking 3. That's out of like 50, like I said earlier, 50 competitors who've qualified from being in the upper levels of their states. So just going into there, major thing was just be top 3, try to make the team. And then the first day was not super great. So it's a 3-day event, qualifiers, semifinals, and then the last day is finals. And then every day they eliminate like a certain number of competitors. So the first day was not super great. I placed okay. I placed 4th the first day, but I didn't feel super confident on the climbing wall. So I was a little bit unsure. And then the second day I felt a lot better. And then the last day, I knew it was just going to come down to being in a good headspace and being able to sort of clear my mind and be super present. Mm-hmm. So, I just came out, climbed on the wall, and I felt really good. So I was super happy because as soon as I came down from the wall, I just knew top 3, so it was good.
For those of the people watching, including myself, like, can you explain how the competitions kind of work and like what your routine is for the day and how it all goes?
Yeah, so for these types of competitions, you start the day in what's called the isolation area. So all the competitors meet in an area behind the competition venue where we can't see any of the actual climbs that we're going to attempt, and we have warm-up walls back there and just a general warm-up area. So all the competitors are held back there until it's your turn to come out and climb. So we hang out back there, warm up, and you can be back there for like a few hours for sure. So you time your warm up so that you know you're going to be nice and warm when it's time to go out. Then you go out, you have 4 minutes in front of a climb, and you have to try to, starting from the bottom, try to get as high as you can on the climb.
So you don't see the climb at all before? You don't know what's coming? Yeah,
just those 4 minutes. So you just turn around, you have 4 minutes to try to get as high as you can, and then 4 minutes you sit down, you rest, and then you have another climb, and we have 3 to 4 climbs to do. So.
And you don't see any of the other competitors go?
Yeah,
right?
So that's what the isolation area is for. You only come out when it's your turn to climb, so you can't see how another competitor did the climb. You've got to figure it out for yourself.
So a lot of that is just them problem solving, right?
Yeah, so that's why there's also a lot of room for error. Like in 4 minutes, if you turn around and you just don't do the climb like a way that works really well. For example, if everybody was going left hand to one hold and you for some reason keep going right hand or trying like some weird way and it doesn't work and you just should have tried something else, like that's an easy way to really mess up like a big competition.
So how do you prepare for that? Like, because obviously you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. How, like, before, or just how do you prepare for that mentally or just physically as well?
So in general, just during practice and at the gym, a lot of times I'll do what's called like on-sighting, which just means you turn around, take a look at a climb, and try to do it first try without having seen anyone else do it. And so just try to be able to make those decisions of which hand am I going to go with, like which feet am I going to use. Just making those decisions for yourself without seeing anyone else do that. And you just get like way more used to that as you do it more and more in the gym. And then also just in general, like a lot of full body exercises that we do just kind of help us be fit in a way that we can sort of adapt to whatever type of climbing moves they throw at us.
Is there any difference with warm-ups? Because you talked about warming up and stuff. Is there any difference with warm-ups with rock climbing compared to other sports like running, or not really?
Yeah, for sure. So rock climbing warm-up, for me, what that looks like, and for a lot of competitors, is we do maybe a general like full body warm-up just to get the blood flowing. So we'll do like jumping jacks, and we'll do some resistance band exercises to warm up our shoulders and all that. And then for up to an hour, some competitors will take up to 2 hours just on the climbing wall, just starting with bigger holds, easier holds to grab, and then working your way to harder moves. Because when you get out to the first climb, you don't want the first thing that you try to be the hardest thing you've tried all day. You want to kind of be ready for it. So definitely trying some harder moves until you feel completely ready to try your absolute hardest on the climbs out of the isolation area.
Okay. How important is like flexibility to rock climbing? Because some of the moves I've even seen you post are like very like your whole body, you have to be super flexible to either be able to make that jump or that move.
Yeah, so flexibility is super important, and this year I definitely tried to incorporate a lot more stretching into my routines, just because like if a foothold is really far away, you're gonna have to like spread your feet apart and be able to reach that. And then just in general, like a lot of times keeping your hips close to the wall, just that kind of goes back to you never know what kind of moves you're gonna have to do, because it is just so open to like they can make you do whatever type of moves that they want when you're competing. So just being able to adapt to that and to use your body as best you can to make it up the wall sometimes will require like a lot of flexibility. So that's definitely a super important factor.
And then after placing second at nationals, like what were the thoughts going through your head immediately after you finished that last day and you knew that you had made the U.S. team?
Yeah, so I was definitely super excited. I knew it was possible just because of how the season had been going so far, but it was also just like so little room for error. So I was really happy to get that done, and it was definitely a super like exciting moment for me. Yeah, right away. That was really cool.
What's like next from there? You have like world championships, or what's going on after that?
Yeah, so for the youth national team, for the U.S., that's a few youth athletes that they send to the Youth World Championships, which are in Italy this year at the end of August. So that's what's going on for that. And then one thing that I should probably say about competition climbing is it's usually broken up into 3 disciplines. So bouldering, which is you're climbing shorter climbs without any ropes or anything, but you have mats underneath you. So those are usually more powerful, shorter. And then you have sport climbing, which is with a rope, and it's a lot taller and it's more endurance based. And then you have speed climbing, which is one route that's the same all the way throughout, like everywhere in the world it's the same route, and then it's whoever gets to the top the fastest. So I made the bouldering team, which means for the Youth World Championships I'll be competing for the US in bouldering. But there's also a sport team and a speed team, and so the qualifications for that are in July. So right now I'm going to focus on training for the sport team and see if maybe I can do well, like build more endurance and do well at sport nationals this year. And if I'm able to do that, then I might be able to compete in sport in Italy as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of like there's a lot of different factors for the comp scene, but
okay. One thing I've seen, at least in 2019, I feel like climbing's starting to get more of a name for itself in terms of just the general public with the documentary coming out. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so climbing is definitely becoming a lot more popular recently. The new movie that came out, Free Solo, which won an Oscar for Best Documentary Film. That was a really cool film. Definitely recommend checking it out. And it's also another discipline of climbing, outdoors. And so that definitely got a lot of people into climbing. And then also in 2020, the rock climbing was introduced as a new sport for the Tokyo Olympics. So that's definitely turned some heads and made people more interested in just figuring out what climbing's about.
Would you ever be interested in doing anything like a free solo, like a large climb like that, or anything like that?
Yeah, so free soloing is really, really dangerous. And so for those of you who don't know, it's just climbing without a rope for very, very tall, crazy climbs. And this guy, Alex Honnold, did El Capitan in Yosemite without a rope. So he just climbed 3,000 feet, just him and his chalk bag and his climbing shoes. Personally, that's not something that I would ever try to do. And I think most climbers, only a very, very, very small percentage of climbers ever attempt to do things like that, because if you mess up, you die. There's not a lot of room for anything else there. So personally, I wouldn't do that, but in terms of just outdoor climbing, there's a lot of really cool things to get into there as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said the rock climbing was added to the 2020 Olympics. What do you think about that? And would going to the Olympics be a future goal for you?
Yeah, so I think that it's really cool that climbing is in the Olympics, and I think it's going to get a lot of people into the sport who otherwise maybe never would have heard of it or never would have tried climbing, which I think is great because I love rock climbing and I want lots of people to be able to experience that. But so climbing in the 2020 Olympics, a lot of climbers are really excited about it. They're doing a combined medal, which means that they're going to have one medal, and that's going to be whoever is the best at all three disciplines, which that's the three disciplines that I talked about earlier. So speed, sport, and bouldering. A lot of climbers aren't super happy about that format. Yeah, because a lot of people are not really good at all three. They're just better specialize at their own disciplines. So that's definitely getting a lot of people who are climbing now more interested in training for all the disciplines, just in general. But for me, 2020 is not really an option, but it was just approved for 2024, I think. So depending on where I'm at in around then, and then where just climbing is at, I think that would definitely be something I'd be interested in pursuing for sure.
Do you train all three disciplines?
Yeah, so I train primarily bouldering, so that's just because that's what's most accessible to me. Yeah, where I climb is a bouldering gym. So I mostly train bouldering. I also do train sport climbing, and I'm doing that more right now. So that's more endurance-based. And I really, really like sport climbing. I think I've been having a lot of fun with that. So I'm definitely doing those two. And then speed is a lot harder to train just as a general thing for climbing, because it is one route that's the same all around the world, but that one route is not really available in that many places. For us, the nearest speed climbing wall is in Reno, and then the other one, there's one in San Diego and LA, and then just around the country there are some just throughout. But just being able to train on that wall is not an easy thing just to get to. But definitely in the future, if I had a speed wall more accessible to me, I would put a lot more time into that discipline.
And then how you prepare for each event must be totally different, because you said one's endurance based, and then one's speed based. So does that change in terms of your cardio, or what kind of other stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so for bouldering, it's mostly power based, so your ability to do really hard moves. So that means that you're training a lot more, you're doing a lot fewer moves, and you're doing a lot harder moves, and you're also doing maybe a little more weight training and just trying to build pure strength. And then for sport climbing, which is a lot more endurance based, you're doing like 10 to 20 times more moves than you would on boulders. So that means
it's not going to be as difficult in terms of...
Yeah, so the individual moves are a lot easier, but you'll get a lot more tired. So for me, in terms of training, that means more cardio and more time just spent on the climbing wall, just trying to build endurance.
Do you have any like long-term goals for rock climbing, or how far do you really want to go with it?
Yeah, so for me, I really, really love competing. So hopefully the next few years I'll be able to compete just around the country more, and then hopefully get more into doing international competitions. And then, so based on 2024, the Paris Olympics, I would definitely be interested in sort of pursuing that. It's hard to know like where climbing will be and where I'll be in 4 years, but like for right now, that's definitely something that I would be thinking about.
Okay. Do you have any places in the world you'd love to travel to and climb? Like, do you have any specific ones like, hey, in the future I'd like to go there and climb?
Yeah, so for outdoor climbing, I would love to go to South Africa. And they have just the Rocklands, which is an amazing place, like just incredible bouldering. So I would definitely like to go there at some point. And then also just going to Europe and just climbing around like in all the different countries there, just in the gyms and outdoors, doing competitions there as well would be really cool.
Do you have a favorite spot you go to right now, like at least in California or anything like that for outdoor climbing?
Yeah, so outdoor climbing, we have Bishop, which is not super far from the Bay Area. It's like about a 6-hour drive over the Sierras. They have definitely world-class bouldering, so yeah, people travel from all over the world to go boulder there, so we're really lucky to be able to go over there sometimes.
And then I remember you mentioned this to me before. It was like this kind of free soloing, but you're doing it over like a lake or like over a body of water. What is that?
So that's called deep water soloing, and that's just basically you climb over a body of water. So they've built artificial climbing walls over pools and stuff like that, which is really cool. And then outdoors they have that in Spain. In Mallorca is really well known for that. And it's just a cliff over water. You climb, and if you fall into the water. I've never done that, but I would love to do that. I think that would be super fun. There isn't really much of that in California or in the United States that I know of, but in Spain is definitely a place to go for that.
And then just to wrap it up, do you have like any advice for any beginning climbers or people who really want to try it out?
Yeah, so I would say just you can go online and figure out where there's a climbing gym. If you live anywhere with like a big city around, you'll probably be able to find a nice gym. Just like find some friends, go over to the climbing gym, ask the people behind the desk for an intro, like how does this work? Like what are the rules for climbing? Just go over there, try it out. Yeah. See for yourself. It's really fun. It's like a good social activity you can do with your friends, and it's also a super good workout. Just it's just a lot of fun. So just check it out for sure.
All right, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the interview. Thank you for Cloe for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at the Fergie Time Podcast, and take it easy. Peace.